Hello, and welcome to another edition of Survival Stuff with Indiana Jim, sponsored by Live Free USA at AmericanSurvivor.org. I am James C. Jones, and I do live in Indiana, but Harrison Ford took Indiana Jones, so I'm Indiana Jim. Live Free USA is America's oldest and most respected survival organization, established back in 1968 to promote survival education and family preparedness. We are a not-for-profit tax-deductible organization. We're only supported by memberships and contributions, so if you want to join the organization and get lots more information, download 70, 80 copies of our American Survivor newsletter, which, by the way, is the oldest survival publication in the country. Comes out every 2 months, and we're actually expanding it from 12 to 16 pages starting in January of this year. But anyhow, if you want to join, we would appreciate having your membership. We actually have chapters as well that you can get involved with. So anyhow, AmericanSurvivor.org is our website, and that, by the way, is our logo. And with that, we'll get into our subject matter. And today the subject is 10 rules for survival. Now, some of you may be familiar with my 10 principles of survival. In fact, if you bought one of my books from Skyhorse Publishing, or you can get them on Amazon, it starts up with the 10 principles of survival. And then I also use those same principles in several of my other books, because the 10 principles are broad-based ideas that if you violate those principles, if you don't follow those principles, you will have a hard time in life, and you'll have a hard time in survival situations. So those are principles, and I wanted to separate those from what we're going to talk about today, which is rules. And rules versus principles. Rules apply like right now. If you don't do these things, bad things will happen immediately. As the French say, when the merde hits the secrétaire, or what hits the fan. Right now, there's certain things you need to do and certain things you need not to do to survive, and those are rules. So some of these rules are similar to the principles, are derived from the principles, and some of them are completely different because they apply to very specific kinds of survival situations. So let's get started on these 10 rules of survival that I've separated out. By the way, I call this 10 rules of survival, not the 10 rules of survival, because there probably are a lot more rules that apply under certain situations. But these are 10 rules that definitely are my top 10 rules, let's say. The first rule of survival is trust your gut. And what I mean is, we have been programmed over millions of years of surviving. Your ancestors were the people who thought something didn't sound right or heard a little noise in the bush and ran like hell. Your ancestors are not the folks who said, everything will be all right. That noise I heard, it's probably nothing but the wind. And they're not around anymore. So they weren't your ancestors. So yes, they trusted their gut. Now we've developed over many, many millenniums senses that we are not aware of consciously anymore, but they're there. We're hearing things, feeling things, smelling things, sensing things that we're not consciously aware of, but we know something's not right. Okay, Tommy Lee Jones one time had a problem. One of the movies, I think it was The Fugitives. Somebody guy said something's hinky, and he didn't like that. But yeah, okay, maybe hinky is a good word. There's something not right with this guy or this situation or this environment. Just seems off. You need to trust that. Okay. Don't let others in society talk you out of trusting your gut. You say, listen, we're not going there today, or we've got to get out of here. That guy, I don't trust that guy, or whatever it is. Somebody say, oh, don't be so paranoid, don't be silly, don't be a scaredy cat. You let your pride, your ego, or whatever override your sixth sense, if you will. Trust your gut. Pay attention to those senses, to your gut, your senses, okay? Second rule of survival, especially important when things happen immediately. Breathe. Now, well, breathe, well, duh, yeah, we all got to breathe. I mean, if you don't breathe, yeah, you won't survive. We understand that. But take a breath. You've heard this. Take a breath, okay? Taking a good breath, breathing in and out, it restores the balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen in your blood, gets rid of those little shakes that you will get from an overabundance of adrenaline when things are going hinky, as we might say, getting crazy. Calms the nerve, restores the oxygen levels, and keeps you and your thinking straight. Combat breathing, which they teach to the police department, they teach to military. They know that when in a pistol combat situation or a firearms combat situation, the first thing goes is the nerves. So you start to shake a little bit. And the combat breathing, as they call it, there's a number of other names for it, calms that down. So as you get that chance, you breathe in slowly for 4 seconds. Hold it for 4 seconds. And you exhale for 4 seconds, slowly. And then you repeat that a couple of times, and it will bring you down, calm you down, stop your shaking, and you'll make better decisions, and your body will make better adjustments. But also, while we're talking about breathing, also remember that breathing is a very critical part of survival. Quite often overlooked. You gotta have water, you gotta have food, you gotta have shelter, you gotta have air. You gotta have air that's breathable. I had included in my books about my equipment, my survival packs. By the way, I never do survival packs because everybody else does it. I was doing survival packs 30 years ago when no one knew what the hell they were. But I don't do them anymore because everybody else does them. But they always had a couple of N95 respirators in it. Now I was a industrial safety manager, so I issued these out. I test fitted them and all that kind of stuff. But I recommend you have these in all your kits and all your bags. These will not only keep dust, soot, radioactive fallout, who knows what's going to happen in the future. They will protect you against most biological hazards. They will protect you against, short term against some chemical hazards for just, get in and get out. And they will not protect you against carbon monoxide, so you can't go into a burning building with these on. But I keep them in my bedside drawer because I might need to get out of a burning building. I hope not. But anyway, I keep them everywhere because I want to make sure I protect my airway. Also, if there's superheated air, I don't want to breathe that superheated air directly in. So I want to have a little barrier between me. If it's super cold air, 10, 20 below zero, all the military winter survival gear contains a version of the N95 because you don't want to be giving up all that heat and that energy in your lungs out to the atmosphere and breathing in new cold air to re-refrigerate your lungs back and forth when you can retain some of that energy and heat with an N95. So I actually carry a version of it in every pocket. So you want to protect that airway. You want to actually be able to breathe, and then you want to use those breathing techniques I just talked about. The third rule of survival is focus. Focus. Have good situation awareness. Know what's going on around you. I lived in Chicago most of my life. You better have good situation awareness. You better know what those guys are doing around there. You better know what's going on behind you. What's going on in that gangway. What's going on behind that car. What's coming down the street. If you're driving in and out of Chicago, which when I moved out, then I had to drive in the expressway, you better know whether the load on that semi looks stable or whether that guy over there might be a drunk driver or whatever's going on. You're anticipating what's happening. You're not on your cell phone. You're not on your, talking. Even talking takes your attention away from what's going on around you when you're driving or when you're walking along. So you have to focus on, have good situation awareness. Don't be an oblivion. You know who I mean. I call them oblivions because they got that smartphone in front of their nose. Even if they're not driving, maybe they're walking down the street, maybe they're in a restaurant. They got that in front of their nose all the time, or worse than that, they push it in your face. I hate those things, okay? But I like to know what's going on around me at all times. So you sit in a restaurant, oh, I'm looking at my smartphone while that guy walks in the door with a heavy coat on it. It's the middle of July. I spot him. You don't. You don't until he opens fire. So yes, in all those cases, be as aware as you can of what's going on around you. Focus on the situation at hand. Pay attention to what you smell, what you see, what you hear, and what you feel. So focus on the situation, focus on your environment. Number 4, rule of survival. Don't get wet. Now this one specifically, this was actually the first one that I recognized, said that ought to be a rule. Don't get wet. Specifically applies to outdoor environments and situations like that, but in those situations, it's a rule, okay? If your clothes get wet, they lose 240 times their insulating value. In other words, if you're in wet cotton, or wet cloth, you may as well be in cold water, okay? And hypothermia will start to set in. Your body will try to heat everything else up to your body temperature, but unfortunately your Mother Nature will try to cool you down to the environmental temperature, which might be 65, might be 45, might be 38. Even if it's 70, you can't survive if your body temperature gets to 70, and Mother Nature's trying to get you down and balance everything out. So she wants you to be 70, and when you got wet clothing on, you're well on the way to hypothermia. And if you get profound hypothermia, it's irreversible and you will die. So it's far better to stay dry than it is to try to start a fire or try to get home or whatever soaking wet, especially when you're getting those temperatures below 80. Even if you're out long enough at 80, your body will eventually get down to 80. It might take a while, but it could happen. So, and definitely when you're in the 70s, 60s, hypothermia is on its way. So one of the rules is don't get wet. So, all your survival kits, and you can even have those little pocket rain ponchos are better than nothing. At BTN, we have another rule, better than nothing. You say, well, that's not really great. Yeah, but it's better than nothing. To have one of these rain ponchos and all your survival kits and all your survival packs, have a rain poncho of some kind. If failing that, you can have a large 44-gallon plastic garbage bag. Now this thing here, I can tie this up, I can make a flotation device out of it, I can make a water still out of it, I can do all kinds of things with it, I can make a shelter out of it. But for this purposes, I can cut a hole in it for my head, a couple holes for my arms, I can make a little rain windsuit, and I can protect myself from both wind and rain and fallout and a couple of other things too. But nevertheless, have these handy for dozens of different things, but help you to stay dry. So rule number 4, don't get wet. Survival rule number 8, have a plan. Now, of course, under principles, we talk about plans too. And those were plans for like a tornado plan, a pandemic plan. Or how many of you had a pandemic plan? I had one. Everyone else was running around arguing about stuff. I just implemented my pandemic plan. But nevertheless, have a plan. And in this case, it's on a moment-to-moment basis because, something bad, somebody comes in, like I mentioned about, walks into the restaurant and they've got a big jacket on that it's inappropriate for the weather because they're probably hiding a weapon of some kind. Some other guys are positioning themselves around. All kinds of situations you can get. Maybe you're on a highway and here that vehicle is starting to swerve back and forth and that roll of steel is starting to move back and forth because it's not secured enough. You start to have a plan. This plan is a moment-to-moment basis. So, you have the plan. It means it puts your mind just 1 or 2 seconds or 1 or 2 minutes ahead of time. So you're already clearing your way to get under that table. If that guy starts shooting and you figure out, well, I think he's this table. Or you're already, you start to smell smoke. You're starting to think, well, those people are going to rush to that door. I'm going to have a plan to get go this way and get out of here quicker. Whatever that plan is, it's a moment to moment, and then if something goes wrong, you have that second plan, the third plan. It's a moment. So under disaster situations, have a plan and another plan and another plan and another plan. My wife asks me sometimes, says, you have a plan for every day, you have a little list. What happens when you don't get everything done on the list? I said, make another list, make another plan. So yes, you're going to have to make planning, and I'm walking down the street. If those guys come out of that alley, I'm going to go walk on the other side of the street. If there's somebody that blocks me, I'm going to go this way. Worst comes to worst, if I've got a weapon, then I'm going to deploy the weapon, etc., etc. Yeah. So a plan, etc. So have a plan. Rule number 5, survival rule number 5. Do a running what-if analysis, what if, and plan. Rule number 5, have a plan. Survival rule number 6, keep moving. Hard to hit a moving target. Heard that a million times. In most combat situations and crime situations, the mover makes the rules. I've actually been in situations where I was approached by criminals they were going to try to stop me, and then of course if they got me to stop, then they could close in on me, and then they could do whatever else that they had in mind. But I didn't stop. I wouldn't stop for them. I kept going where I was going, and I had another plan and another plan. But they're like kind of chasing me, like, oh, hey, guy, try, because can you get a light to get some change? Can you help me get this direction? No, they're up to no good. Keep moving. The same thing in a combat situation. You fire and you move. You fire and you move. You don't fire and then stay in the situation. Almost every situation, at least keep moving until you get to a safe location or you get to a sheltered location. Don't be a sitting duck, as they say. Get away from the threat. Get away from the hazardous environment. Like we say, if there's fallout, somebody asked me, well, what do I do if the nuclear plant does this and that, and how can I build a fallout shelter and all that kind of stuff? I'm like, well, if it's just one downwind situation of a chemical spill or a radioactive fallout situation or something like that, move out of that area, move crosswind, and get out of the area as fast as possible. Keep moving, then you can decontaminate and all that. Keep moving. So survival rule number 6, keep moving. Survival rule number 7, do it now. Procrastination kills. Procrastination kills. He who hesitates is lost. You've heard this? If you got to do it now. Somebody grabs you, you think, well, maybe he'll let go. Maybe no. You start fighting right away. You start hollering, screaming, whatever you've got. You do it right now. The time is never on your side in a survival situation. If you got to get to shelter, don't wait around and watch to see if the tornado's coming. Do it now. I've been through a tornado. Believe me, they move a lot faster than you think. Fire doubles every 2 minutes. Get out now. Don't wait. Okay? So yeah, do it now. Fight, shoot, run, stop the bleeding if that's what's happening. Administer CPR if that's what you need to do. Evacuate if that's what you need to do. Once you determine it needs doing, it's much better done now than 30 seconds from now or 2 minutes from now. Do it now, okay? And if you have had a plan, that makes it a lot quicker. Safe rule for survival number 8, conserve your energy. Now again, this applies mainly to outdoor situations, but it also applies to everyday life, especially as food and fuel and things become a little harder to get. It's often overlooked in a well-fed society. Fuel conservation prolongs your life, and it gives you more energy when you really need it. So basically what I'm talking about when I talk about conserve your energy is your food, the energy that you put in your body, now it's in there burning in your little, each cell is like a little furnace. It gets fuel and sugar from what you eat, and it mixes it with oxygen and it burns and makes heat, basically what it does. In cold, wet weather, getting wet and running around, trying to start a fire or trying to do other things, or trying to get back home when you should really just be digging in and staying in shelter. Now you're losing all this energy. There's an old theory, well, if you fall asleep in the cold, you'll die. No. If you get exhausted and you're wore out because you were running around trying to build a shelter or trying to do this or that, and then you fall asleep, you'll die because your energy is all gone. Now, historically, people have, in the Eskimos, for instance, and the people up far north know that, in the Indians up in the northern latitudes, know that if they dig in, if they get caught in a blizzard, what do? They find the most sheltered spot they can, they cover up with everything they can, and they dig in, and they just sleep, okay? Now what'll happen is, they'll fall asleep, and when their body temperature gets too low, they'll shiver and wake up, and the body will generate enough heat to keep them going, and then they'll fall asleep again. And in this way, they will be, like a sleep mode on your computer. Okay, same thing applies. They will get through 1, 2, 3 days. In fact, there's been a situation recorded where they left these children, somehow got caught, and they were left in Alaska, I think it was March, it was not the coldest time, but very cold. And they were like 2 weeks, and they were covered up with sailcloth and all that, and they just stayed in that one spot. And they survived for 2 weeks, and they were found to be still functional because they didn't run around and they didn't exhaust themselves. So conserving your energy, animals, I mention this all when I'm doing outdoor survival classes all the time. You ever see the raccoons and the possums and the deer and everything all around their campfire at night, staying warm? And everybody looks at me like I'm crazy. Yeah, well, right, they don't have a campfire, so how do they stay warm? They eat, and they dig in, and they stay warm with their insulation. You have insulation, it's called clothing. And they survive, so conserve energy. Okay, survival rule number 9, always carry a knife. Yeah, this is equipment related, but nevertheless, this is what makes the difference between humans having a chance and animals having a chance. Now, of course, we got the big old survival knife that's probably in your survival pack. That's great, and you should have a survival pack and survival kits and whatever. And whenever you can, carry something. This is the Air Force survival knife, which I happen to like a lot. It is the original, by the way, not the knockoffs that they got nowadays. But nevertheless, always carry a knife of some kind. Now, doesn't always have to be a big knife. It can be, and by the way, it can be any kind of knife that you want. I used to carry a Swiss Army knife, like this. This is my small Swiss Army knife. You can see it's kind of beat up, carried a lot. You can carry all kinds of knives. Now, obviously, sometimes I can't carry the Swiss Army knife or the other knife. The main thing is, we have another thing called, it's not what, the slogan, not what you have, it's what you have with you. So yes, I have this, but I can't have this with me. You can imagine me walking into the restaurant with this hanging on my belt. Okay, so lots of times I carry a nice, this is Special Ops gear knife. It's a really nice little, good pocket knife. Got a cord cutter, and I got another one that has a glass breaker for rescue. I carry that sometimes. Or sometimes I will carry this is a Leatherman Wave multi-tool. If you like the multi-tools better, that's good. I carry this on my belt and I get away with it almost anywhere I want to go. Be sure if you get one of these that it's one of the ones where the blade deploys without you having to go in, open the whole thing up and get all the other stuff out. You can just get one that has the blade that comes from the outside so you can get at it. But it's kind of a small knife. I prefer a knife. Lots of times I carry both, okay? Now, it doesn't matter if, you want to have it with you. So this is a little cheapy knife, but they actually use a Smith & Wesson brand, but that's just, they bought the brand and make them in China, okay? But nevertheless, $5 at a gun show. But I bought a bunch of these. I put them in every jacket, every vest, every glove compartment, a few drawers around the house. There's knives available all the time. Obviously, you got children, you probably don't want to leave these all around the house in drawers. But let's say I got to go out and I'm wearing a suit or something like that, and I really have to be a little more conservative with my knife choice. Yeah, you can still have something like this. I also have some neck knives that I got a t-shirt on. I can still carry a neck knife, around my neck. So anyhow, always carry a knife. Okay, survival rule number 10. Never give up. Okay, definitely the most important. Even in civilized conditions, some people give up and commit suicide. We have these things, COVID-19. Oh, I can't get on the internet. Oh, I can't get together with my friends. Oh, I'm out of a job. Oh, I don't have any money. I'm committing suicide. Come on. If you don't have the will to survive, if you don't feel that you're that important to society, if you're self-centered, then once you lose that contact with people, you tend to be, freak out. But you should be mission-centered. This is why I'm here. I need to do this. I'm important to the world. I'm going to make a difference. That's what you need to do. You need to get off of this, my presence on the internet or my social thing with my friends it defines me. No, you define you. If you're psychologically unable to cope with no TV, no social media, no fun, not enough food, no job. By the way, I've been through all of those things early in my life, including no TV and no food and all the others. Yeah, I definitely was not had much of a social life back in high school and beyond that for a while. If you can get through that, that's what you need to do. Never give up, because things will get better. If you hang in there, you'll survive. If you hang in there, things will get better, because things are always changing. I don't know how many times I could say that when I thought everything was going to hell. Out of nowhere, there was an opportunity to open up, or a situation to open up that took me to a whole new place that was a good place. Okay, so people have to have the will to hang on. So number 10 is do not give up. It's not about you, it's about your mission. So if you haven't written a mission statement for yourself or thought about what your mission in life is, I highly recommend you do that. So that's my 10 rules versus my 10 principles of survival. So I hope you'll keep these in mind as you go through life and as you get in these situations. And till next time, this is Indiana Jim for Life and Freedom. Stay safe out there.